If you're applying to medical or dental school, but you didn't get the GCSEs that you think you need, there are some options that you do have that are places that you can apply to without really necessarily just having to resit your GCSEs, right? Now, there are a few situations where it's slightly different because let's say if you're a grad, it becomes a little bit, the requirements change a little bit. So we made a separate video there. And also, if you are an international student, you do sometimes need to get your grades changed or translated. So they want to understand that you meet the equivalent requirements. So for internationals, all you really need to do is get them, if you don't have GCSEs, either look on the website of the universities because they'll have equivalents, or if you you can get them translated with a translation service. But the most important thing is if you are, going via the undergrad route and you're wanting to understand how you can you can still get in with what you don't think are particularly good grades, I'm going to talk through some of the options now that you can do and that you can have at your disposal. So when it comes to applying to medicine and dentistry, really the two subjects that matter the most are not what people think, which is science. It's actually English and maths, and most places need a 6 in both English language and in maths, right? Some of them will require a 7, but most of them across the board are a minimum 6. Now, there are two situations. You've either got not the required GCSEs in those two subjects that you need, or you maybe just have not great GCSEs across the board. So we'll talk about those two situations and what to do. So if you don't have a 6 in either maths or English, here are some universities you might want to consider. Bristol, although it has a high requirement for maths, which is 7, Bristol, Leicester and Exeter have a minimum cut-off grade of an English language of 4. So that one is a little bit more lenient. Leeds and Queen's Belfast have a minimum cut-off grade of 4 in maths. Now, one of the traps maybe here is you'll see people say like, Oxford and Cambridge, they don't have a cut-off requirement. But realistically, if you're not getting a 9, and 9s across the board for those universities, there's no point applying to them because they are picking the most high-performing students, and essentially you need 9s and 8s across the board if you are going to consider applying to Oxford or Cambridge. So try not to pay too much attention to those requirements because they are a bit deceiving. So it begs the question of whether we should resit GCSEs if we're in this situation. Well, really it comes down to a couple of things. Do you think you can get the grade? Of course, if it's a non-negotiable, we need to just make sure that we get it. Do you think that you can balance it alongside what is normally meaning that you're doing either A-levels, you're doing a degree, or maybe you're even doing a full-time job? Can you juggle that and still get the grade that you need? When it comes to the universities themselves, most of them say that as long as you meet the requirement, whether it is via the first time or by a resit, it doesn't matter as long as you meet the grade. But I will say that it is worth checking with the medical admissions team of that university. It's always worth checking these things that you're unsure about just to be doubly safe that you are allowed to still apply to them with a reset GCSE that meets the grade. So the second situation could be that you have generally low GCSEs across the board, but your heart is set on medicine or dentistry and you still want to go for it and you want to find out a way to get there. Now, I would first consider that, if you're not meeting the GCSE grades, is there a reason for that? Because A-levels they're harder, and then medical school is incredibly difficult and it's challenging academically. So we have to understand whether there's a genuine reason for us not meeting the academics, or it maybe isn't something that we are naturally strong in, and we have to consider how much effort and how hard we're willing to work to meet the grades, because it is incredibly hard work and it's not for the faint-hearted. So do think long and hard if you want to go down this route, if you're struggling with your academics. But that said, there are some universities that will weight GCSEs lower in their selection criteria. And if you want an up-to-date guide of what universities to choose, I recommend that you go to the futuredoc website, where we've got a free infographic of all the medical schools, what they consider. It's everything from work experience, high UCAT, personal statement, whether that's factored in, how much weighting is put on the interview, and of course GCSEs and A-level requirements. So a really good one to look at to see which ones you might want to consider looking at when it comes to your situation if your GCSEs aren't great. But there are still a few other options. Widening participation is a good option if you fit some of those criteria. So look to see whether you qualify for widening participation or maybe contextual offers. So if you research universities that have lower grade requirements for people from disadvantaged backgrounds, you will find some places that are an option, maybe for you, maybe not. For example, King's College have the EMDP, Nottingham A108, UCLan, Brighton and Sussex. There's the UKWP Med, which is like 7 medical schools that have combined to do this. And then you have the Sheffield Access Plus. And then some other ones for widening participation. You've got Birmingham Medical School, which has Roots to the Professions. Brighton has BrightMed. Hull York Medical School has Pathways to Medicine. Kiel has Steps to Medicine. Manchester has Manchester Access Programme, or Preston Widening Access Programme. Peninsula has Peninsula Pathways, and then Leicester has Access Leicester Medicine. Then you also have the Gateway and the Foundation courses. Now they are ones, it depends on the university, but some of the foundation courses are for people who didn't take the right A levels, so be careful not to misconstrue those. There are some foundation courses for people who didn't get the grades. There are also gateway courses as well. You can search on UCAT, so all the courses have different codes, but A104 is one of the ones that you can use as a gateway, or you have A100 with foundation year. Now some of the universities, again, making sure that you don't get confused with the ones that do it for people who didn't take, your biology and chemistry and want to go via a different route. That's a different type of foundation course. But the foundation courses that you may want to look at are Leicester, Nottingham, Plymouth, Edge Hill, Kiel and Leeds. Then one final way that you can do it is the Access to Medicine courses. So people like Bristol, for example, and Manchester and others, they will take one of these access courses where you, instead of doing a year of A-levels or GCSEs, you do a credits-based system, and if you hit a certain number of merits, they will let you apply to their universities. So that is another one when we don't quite meet the academics that are required. The final option that people can go for is going into a degree and going to the allied health degrees, which then can allow a kind of internal transfer or sometimes an inter-uni transfer onto the medicine course. We actually did an entire video about that here, which you can check out. But ultimately, the requirements are just a small part of it. For a really strong med school application or dental school application, we need to meet all the other 5 criteria that make a strong application that are going to give you the best chances. So this is more of a tick box that we need to make sure that we at least get through the initial hurdle to get where we want to be, but we need to be strong to stand out in all the other bits. So if you want to find out how you can do that, you can check out this video here for how to build your strongest application. Thanks for watching and best of luck with all your GCSEs and with the rest of your application.